Hello?
Hey, I can hear you.
Goodness me. What a
Whoa,
ridiculous scenario.
what's going on, mate? It's your end, is it?
I've got a weird thing. I've got something in the middle of my screen, which is blocking everything out. And I've got no idea how to fix it or whatever. I guess I'll have to reboot the computer at some stage.
Yeah, okay.
Are we live?
We are live, mate. Yes, we are live.
Okay. Sorry about that, guys. Technical hiccups.
Yeah, technical hiccups on a Monday. As soon as you
Yeah,
start.
just what you need.
Well, yes, we are live, mate. Just
Mate, what
very
happened? We got gaps everywhere. Tell me.
well, yeah, the
It's just a virus.
coronavirus. Yes, it
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
It does seem to be that, and I think it was one of those that I don't really know at this stage. How serious it is. We did look for some downside at the end of last week, as you know, and it played out pretty well. And actually, we should probably think about taking profit here anyway and closing everything up. There's still some potential downside. I mean, if I'm kind of considering levels, you know what? I'm not going to do anything this morning. If you want to quickly do the pound trade,
Okay. Yep.
let's do that first, and then we'll talk about levels. Because I'd like to buy this market really, but not just here, just yet. Anyway.
Okay. If you can throw it my way.
Yeah, absolutely can. Stop share. There
you go. Okay. Wow, I've got some weird stuff going on here. I've got screens on screens on screens. Okay, pound US dollar. Let us go. We're now past the hour and very, very close to the candle that we want to trade, which of course is the 9 o'clock bar on most of our MT4 charts. Anyway, it's called the 9 o'clock bar. It's this one here. It's actually the 8 o'clock bar in London. It's the 7 o'clock bar in Australia, and goodness knows it's the 4 o'clock bar in Singapore and Hong Kong. So take your pick. But this is it, and we're trading it both long and short as a breakout. I haven't added any filters to this yet, but this would probably be one of them if I were to do so. Yeah, bang. That's where we'd enter the market. We will do that because we're not adding that filter at this point, but I think in the future we'll certainly be doing that. So we're placing a long entry 15 pips above this bar, and that will give us a level of 1.3097. 1.3097 will be our entry long. So let's set that up. It's Monday, so we're only at half risk, guys. And for those of you joining us for the first time today, I'll explain that in a little bit, or in somewhere in the next half hour or so. So it is a pending order buy stop. 1309. Did I say 7? I can't remember. Let me get the high of that candle. 1.3082 becomes 1.3097. So that's the entry for the long. The stop loss will be the entry for the short, which will be 10 pips underneath this bar. If I can actually see it, and I can't. Okay, let me just get a rough estimate. It'll be 1.3050. That will be your stop loss. 1.3050. And we'll place that order. And now we will do exactly the same thing on the downside. Don't forget to cancel whichever one of these doesn't trigger, guys. By the way, you don't want to be stuck with 2 trades in the market potentially at high risk. Pending order, sell stop this one. 1.3050, I think I said. And 1.309 something or other. 999. Show me. There we go. 97. Okay, that order is also now in the market. So being there again, if I'm filtering this, I'm not taking that long. No way will I be taking that long. Short, not too dusty, but the long is in a very, very precarious position to enter the market right there. But we're not adding filters to this scenario at the moment. Good morning, Ravinda. So that will be the order. The order is long here at 1.3097 with a stop loss at 1.3050 and vice versa. The entry short is 1.3050 with the longs with the stop at 1.3097. Okay, so that is that trade underway. So Ash, I guess back to you. I haven't had a big. I'll update the trades that we're in on the currency side. The weekly trade that we took last week, which was US dollar yen short, was triggered on Friday, I believe, and the gap this morning didn't hurt that. Let's see what happens here. If we can come back and close that gap and then shoot through, that would be pretty cool. I haven't taken any profit on that yet, so it's still at risk. Euro Kiwi was another. We have taken profit on that one. We took profit down here. That's come back as a result of the weekend. Stop loss is still here. Again, we're going to have to monitor what happens. There's no thought of me getting out of this trade. We're exposed very, very slightly. Well, I'm exposed very, very slightly at this point. We are underneath the monthly pivot. We're testing the backside of this support trade line. If the situation fundamentally is out of control, then so are we, basically. But I don't see any point in doing anything here. We're about 1/3 the way to our stop loss, and we do have money in the bank. So I'm happy to wear that very, very small risk that we've got left on the table on this trade. And mate, that's pretty much all I'm in at the moment.
Cool, mate. Okay, well, let's have a look at the global markets, because the yen has obviously been affected by the news, the continued news, and the continued unfolding situation in China with the coronavirus. I like this.
Mate, what's the word on the ground in the UK? Because the word on the ground here in Australia is, and I guess it's we've gone into don't panic mode.
Yeah.
Is that the same sort of theme in the UK, where the government officials are saying, look, don't panic, it's no big deal, it's under control, it's contained?
Yeah. No, actually, no. It's
no.
A lot of the reporting here has been that it's a pretty serious situation, and obviously with China containing it in the aggressive manner that they're doing, it's spelling it out that it could get quite serious. That they may well get on top of it. World Health Organization obviously hasn't declared it as an emergency as yet, which is, I suppose, one of the reasons that traders haven't reacted in the way that I thought they would. I mean, I thought it'd be a lot worse than this, but when I woke up this morning, I knew there'd be a gap, but I thought the gap would be way down. And actually, I'm quite interested in the long. Really, because yes, it does suggest that where there have been suggestions that it could become a very serious situation. But I suppose for right now, the word really on the street is that the story needs to develop. So then there's not really any kind of commitment one way or the other. Whether it will be serious or not, but they certainly are saying that it could get pretty it could get pretty ugly, and I think when you look at the numbers and the way that the numbers are growing day by day, that they seem to be sort of like taking a few leaps now. Now we're in the sort of late 2000s of people that have been infected. We got 80 that have actually been killed by the coronavirus, and I suppose it's just going to be a question of how contained have they managed to how contained have they got it. They've got a couple of cases in France, I think. I don't think we've got anything in the UK as yet. There are obviously continued reported cases in Asia. So, and as far as I'm aware, there's a few in California as well. So it has spread, you know, it has kind of managed to hop around the world a little bit. But when it comes down to the market, is whether it's going to affect the global economy. It's not really about whether there's a virus that's floating around the world, because we're not trading health, we're trading money, and it's all about whether will this actually affect any of the GDP out of China and subsequently have a knock-on effect for the rest of the world, which is why we are seeing a reaction. But I would suggest that it's been fairly muted, and I'm quite interested in the long here. And I'm going to bring in the other markets. This is the FTSE. There's a gap down this morning, and I wouldn't be surprised at all to see us, reach forward and close that gap by the end of the week, or maybe even the end of the day. I'm not really sure, but the fundamentals picture of the global markets is that there's still liquidity in the market. There's still liquidity being pumped in, and there's maybe no reason to go short, but it may not hold here. We're going to have to watch out to see if it doesn't hold here, because if it doesn't, then there's another leg down. Now, if the next leg down gets taken out, and it is this extension, sorry, this is the 50% retracement of last month's Fibonacci, and that's really what I'm looking at now. If we look at this on a longer term time frame, actually, let me do it like this. I might lose mine. Let me do it like this. Let's bring this over instead. So we look at this, it looks like, yes, it's effectively a 50% retracement of last month's range. That's where we currently sit. Backing this out here. Sorry, that's where we could get down to, and that would be of interest to me. I'm going to bring this onto a weekly chart here. That would be of interest to me. So it's just a little bit low. It's a little bit more of a dip down, but anything kind of like in this area down here, then I'm still interested in the long. And I'd quite like it to come down just a little bit further. It does need to hold on here, though. When we look at this on a monthly chart, on a clean monthly chart here, this is going to be a very negative looking bar if price doesn't manage to kind of get up in the next 5 days. So I'll be looking for around about 100 pips to the upside within the next 5 days, because, and as I say, if it doesn't do that, all bets are off, and we could be falling right back down to this line potentially. So it's going to be a bit of a developing picture. But for right now, if we look around, across the board, this is what's going on with gold. Gold breaking out to the upside over the weekend as well, but looking like it's just starting to sell off in the early part of the session in the UK right now. So this is looking at a little bit negative, after an initial gap. Yes, it could fly from here, and if that happens, then again, we'll have to be starting to look in the opposite direction. Gold is really very, very it's a bit tenuous up here. I wouldn't be surprised at all to see gold retrace quite significantly, maybe back down to this kind of this 1450 level to start with, and possibly all the way back down to 1350. But it's looking a bit toppy up here. We already had one incident with Iran that got sold straight back off again, and I wonder whether that might happen with the developing story here. We'll continue to look around some of the other markets and see if we can get some barometers. S&P also gapping to the downside, but not a huge collapse, right on an area of support. It's probably going to have to take out that area of support before I get too concerned. There's also a trend line just under here as well. So the S&P sits on a support level. Does that support level give way? And if it does, then I think maybe we then start to see the 7% retracement in the S&P. Dow Jones Industrials, very, very similar picture, also kind of sitting on this trend line here, and there's just an area of support, probably this one here, that gap does need to close up, and let's see what today's bar is. It might end up to by the end of the day we just effectively have a hammer, but if we don't, then things do change, and we're gonna have to sit on the sidelines and wait. The yen, very, very interesting story. I think we were both calling for the yen under this bar, and you very wisely put an entry under that bar and let it go up, and now we also gapped the downside. But look at the bar's reaction so far this morning, not looking particularly negative as we start the UK session. and really back to. Let's just have a quick look at the VIX as well. VIX takes a huge pop to the upside in volatility, so it is suggesting that we are getting a bit of a return to volatility in the market. So there's going to be some toing and froing from the suggestion of that particular market. But all I'm really looking at now is a market which is attempting to go lower without any real significant levels taken out to suggest that that has happened. Look at the price action here on the FTSE, also sitting on this pattern, and I wonder if we manage to hold this level by the end of the day, not causing a hammer. Even though that could happen, not really causing anything significantly, anything significant in the way that price action looks, but just holding. And a hold of this particular level will change the picture, I think, fairly drastically as we go into the end of the week, and we might actually start to see a pop back to the upside. The big caveat, of course, with the FTSE is always going to be what's going on with the pound. And the pound to me looks like it could be a little bit weak as well. We've seen some fairly positive price action from the UK and from the pound with the speculation of an interest rate cut, and then those numbers coming out better than expected. So the pound's also in a little bit of a tenuous spot here. I could see the balls come into play here, but by the same token, I'm not 100% sure whether we've seen all the downside out of the pound, particularly if we consider that this is a head and shoulders pattern right here as well. So there may be more downside risk with a pound. There's the left shoulder there. There's the head, and it looks fairly clean as well. And this is the formation of the right shoulder. Looks like it may take a little while longer, but the neckline looks somewhere along there. So it's a higher right shoulder than it is a left. But if that gives way, then pure downside with the pound, and that would suggest that the FTSE also could start getting a pop back to the upside. So I'm interested in the longs down here, mate, with the FTSE, but as yet, I think people may well want to see what happens with the developing story with the coronavirus, and that might even take us.
I'm with them. I'm one of them. I want to see what happens myself.
Yeah, I mean, when I saw the news over the weekend, I thought that market is going to gap to the downside. There's no question in my mind that we're gapping lower. But I don't think that is the significant or the speculation. It's kind of easy that we were going to gap, but the fact that we haven't really had a gap and go at this stage fills me with a little bit of hope that we might be holding on here. We might get a pop to the upside, but it's not to say that there isn't further downside coming. But I just wonder whether we close that gap, and that gap to me, as I said before, looks quite an interesting level by the end of the week, which is also the end of the month. And it's going to be an interesting week, I think, for stocks, because it is the closing of the week and closing of the month. And a negative bar on the monthly looks like it could be some significant downside for the FTSE 100. So I think there'll be an attempt certainly to hold on here. But the question is really, do we buy in here, or do we try and wait for a little bit lower? And the way that charts are looking at this particular stage, I would plump just to wait a little while longer and see if we can get just a bit more downside here before looking for the longs.
Mate, like you, I'm trying to work out the pound, and technically I've got I guess, issue. I'll put it that way. And the issue is very much a bit about what's been happening on a short-term basis. We're getting spikes all over the place, and the movement intraday is quite dramatic and very, very difficult to trade, as our breakout strategy has proven over the past 2 weeks, performing very, very dismally. But one thing that I do see at the moment, and I better take screen, I suppose.
Yeah, just quickly, just to answer Ravinder as well. He's telling us that in Hong Kong they've announced that the schools will be closed till the 17th of February. That's a big old holiday there. And also alert that the Chinese are coming back from Chinese after the New Year holiday. And that's the problem, isn't it? It's just the volume of people. But you can see that they're taking this particular strain extremely seriously. But just a little bit of history on this stuff as well. Oh, and is the gap because of the embassy in Baghdad rocket? No, the gap is because of the coronavirus. Just because the story keeps developing and there seems to be more and more people every day that are both affected and are actually getting killed by the virus. So that's the gap. But just very quickly on the history of this stuff. Was it 800 people? I think was the final figure for the SARS virus. And actually, the Hong Kong economy really did suffer from that. But the reaction of the
800
market.
people, is that right?
I think it was 800 people. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was that many. Or was it 80? I thought I know it was an 8 in it. I'm going to have to look for that. Died from SARS. Right, let's have a look. Yeah, so oh gosh, sorry, 8,000 people.
Yeah, I was thinking it was a fair bit more than that.
Oh yeah, so 8,000 people. Sorry about that. Yeah, so 8,000 people died from the SARS virus. And what was interesting is the market reaction was quite muted. You know, it was back in April 2003, and I haven't really got the numbers. Sorry, I haven't got the chart, unfortunately, right back in 2003 because MT4 does not provide me that far back, as far as I'm aware. I will have a look. No, only go back to 2009. But really the reaction was quite muted. So I'm not really looking for a huge collapse in the market at this early stage. And look at the FTSE now. You know, the FTSE's having a little boost to the upside. You know, after touching the monthly pivot. So I think we need to let the charts develop. I think we need to let the story develop a little bit. But as I say, I'm kind of happy to go long here.
Okay. Now.
Yes. No, not now. Not now. No. We got to let the charts prove themselves a little bit. It would be just a bit too speculative at this particular stage. But I would be fairly comfortable if we continue to bash our heads around this particular level. We may not get the opportunity. It might be too late. We might get a drop and pop, and if that's the case, I can't really do a lot about that. But if it's proving that it's holding here, then I'll be happy to take on a long trade in the market here.
All right, mate. Naturally enough, you will keep us posted on that, and I will now have a look at this beast, the pound, that's been haunting us for the last 2 or 3 weeks, or 2 weeks anyway. You might have to stop sharing, I think.
Yeah, sorry, buddy. Yeah, of course. Yeah, the pound has been a beast, isn't it? And we'll look at some of the news and data from the pound because it's in news this week, isn't it? It's in the news this week.
Actually, I haven't had a look at the news this week, but we've got FOMC. I know that should be this week.
And we also have the Bank of England monetary policy report and the monetary policy official bank rate as well on Thursday.
Cool. Okay, I'm having this issue. Cancel that. Well, I'll show you the issue when I get my screen up here, guys. The issue is there's a control panel that we have to deal with, and you guys can't see it. Of course, it's hidden from us. But in the middle of my screen, I don't know if you can see it, I've got this box here. Yeah, you can see it. And I can't do a thing about it. It's just embedded in my screen.
That's a very strange. So is that MT4 doing that?
Yeah. And it makes life extremely difficult. You know, normally on a box, you can just click on the damn thing, double click, and away it'll go. But it's not in the objects. It doesn't exist.
It's like a chart that is carrying through from one to another, isn't it?
It is, yes. But I'll be dashed if I can get rid of it. What's this rectangle? It's probably the one I've got on the screen. Yeah, that one. Okay. So yeah, I just can't get rid of it. So it's very, very annoying and does go over some of my analysis. So just bear with me as I describe it to you. So let's go back to the pound. And the pound, as you can see, has put in a pretty strong base. Sorry, not base, a top last week. The opposite to a base is a top. Yes, we'll call it a top, shall we? significant lower high here would have to get me interested to the short side, I would have thought. Daily pivot looks to be an ideal place for that to occur. So I'm kind of the opinion this can go to here. And if it does and comes back off, that'll be, again, disastrous for our breakout trade. But that's really what I think I'd be looking for if I was trading this today. I'd look for a little bit of upside to here and then look to trade it short. But then I look at the bigger picture. And the bigger picture, let's call it the monthly chart for now, is showing me one of two things. And there's that box. So I do have highs coming through here, which actually makes this trend line. And of course, on a monthly chart, it's quite a substantial trend line. It's coming from about here somewhere. And we have rejected that last month. And thus far this month, that continues to be the case. But we have come off a little bit, as we spoke about in the last 2 weeks, I think it was, when we noticed that price had come back to this level here. And that was an obvious bounce point. And it's done that twice and put in a higher high on both occasions. Now, the argument or the question is this now a retracement on that move, or has this now turned around and are we looking for these highs again? Great question. How do we answer that? Well, from a technical perspective, I think the only thing I can do is follow the lead of the pound, which is very much a case of bounce off support and resistance, which it has been doing. Here's where it becomes difficult with this bloody box. I can't move my trade lines because of it. So just bear with me and see what I see, I suppose, or I'll try and make you see what I can see. And what I can see here is, if I were to put that line in there, it's exactly the same as that. Doesn't do anything for me. But if I move it down to here, it's giving me a completely different story, where we've broken to the high side, come back, but have we retested that area is the question. The weekly pivot's popped up. I'll make that a little bit larger for you so you can see it. So, this trend line has been broken, hasn't quite been retested, but we are at a support level. So it's kind of messy and very, very difficult to predict in many ways. Then I go back and have a look at the relative strength of everything versus the US dollar, which of course is indicated by this chart, which is the dollar index chart. I should be able to share that with you. That should pop up here in just a tick. Hopefully it does. I've got a bit of a delay, so I can't talk. Anyway, I'll start talking about it. Dollar index, we chose last week to have a look at this, or last 2 weeks, I think we've been looking at it, and decided that this was a pretty clear, or to me, sorry, a pretty clear indication that this was going to rally. Pretty much off the back of, if you consider this to be a head and shoulders, this to be the neckline, then we broke it, retested it again, and here's where this started to rally. And this was over Friday. Would have been the last bar on Friday, probably, to my memory. But this looks really like it could go on with the job here, the US dollar. So the virus scenario won't harm that prospect in any way, shape or form, I wouldn't have thought. Traditionally, the US dollar being somewhat of a safe haven currency. So this could well, for mine, go and test this high up around the 98.50 mark. So I'm a little bit dubious about the prospects of the pound going longer in that scenario, or in that particular environment, if you like. So let's go back to that and see if I can actually work a strategy of how to trade this pound beast. And I've got to say, until we get back to this trend line, I can't call this short in any way, shape, or form. I have to wait till this breaks down before I can think about short. If I have a look through here, this just seems to be closing in very, very cozily, if you like, into this horrible, horrible area where we've got weekly pivot, daily pivot today, the resistance trend line, the support trend line. I'm finding it's very, very difficult to have any confidence about in any way, shape, or form. So going back to all of those scenarios where we've got the bounce potentially going back to this trend line, or if we close underneath the pivots, then we've got a bearish scenario. It's too hard. I just can't work it out, Ash, and I can't say to you, look, I'm a bull or a bear in any way, shape, or form.
On the
I
dollar.
don't think there's pound on the dollar. I think I'm a bull, but pound against the dollar, I just got to be completely out of the market. I think at the moment, I can see cases all over the place, and none of them really are compelling. What I would say on this chart here, the monthly chart, if we do get a bearish decisive bar that engulfs this one, I would be interested in placing a long order here and see exactly what happens. I think I'd be prepared to do that. Reason being, if the dollar does continue its strength, then we're back down here and retesting these lows, regardless of what the pound does. I think the dollar will trump everything, and down here we will go. But if that's not the case, and the dollar actually turns around, it is at a resistance level at the moment. If the dollar weakens, which seems unlikely in the current environment, rhino, what do they call it that? Coronavirus. You've just got to be really, I think, dollar bullish. Well, sorry, you can do anything you like. I've got to be dollar bullish.
So I know what you mean on that, mate. Yeah, I know what you mean. It's a funny one, isn't it? Because obviously the obvious choice for any kind of safety is going to be the yen. But after that, you've got to suggest that the dollar. I mean, maybe gold, obviously, but after that, you've got to suggest that the dollar is the one that you're going to be looking at.
I believe so. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I can see a case for the pound, but I can also see a very strong case, whilst ever this virus is prominent, to go against that. So that's going to be pretty much the case with all the currencies against the US dollar at the moment. I think I'd like to know where Donald's up to, and what sort of effect we're going to have with impeachment, etc., etc. That may throw a little bit of a spanner in the works. I'm not sure which way that goes.
Yeah, it could, couldn't it? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. There's that position we pointed out last week. Super bearish, the euro dollar. There were two great chances to get in, one there and one there, both gone. And if you didn't take it, then
we're still on the dollar index at the minute, mate.
Oh, sorry, mate. Okay, yes, we've got to change screens to there, to there. Okay, so still this little thing in the middle is a pain in the backside. So with the euro, as I said, two great chances to get in. One was there and the other was there. And if you haven't found your way in there, like I haven't, and I'm not too happy about that, then there may well be another one. If we go back to retest the backside of this trade line, or even the weekly pivot here, and put in another lower high, similar to that, then I think there's still some room for euro dollar to fall. And if we were able to get through the bottom of that range, there's a long way for euro dollar to fall. And I find it very, very difficult to be a euro bull in any way, shape, or form at all, frankly. I just cannot find it within myself to be a euro dollar bull at the moment. So I think if I can find a way in here, definitely be taking profit at this level. But I also see, 104 as a potential for euro dollar. But, that said, if we have a look at this channel that I had on my chart forever, which went through there, there, there. There, we're through those highs, that's right. There looks to be the target area for me. So if I draw a horizontal line across there, I think we're somewhere there. So 106, 106, 105.50. Over time, of course, it's not going to go there tomorrow, but if I can find a way in, that's a weekly chart I'm looking at. So the way in for me would be a retest of this broken trend line here. If I were to see that and find my way in here, I think I'd hang on to this as long as I possibly could till I got down to this level here. But if you have a look at this structure, which was interrupted grossly by this breakout to the high side, it's contained price for what, 2 years? Not quite, 18 months. So euro dollar has been in that range for 18 months, apart from this breakout here. I've got no reason to think that's not going to continue. And you know, even if we bounce from here back to here, we'll, I do believe, find our way down here at some stage. So wide stops on this, if I can find my way in, maybe at the top of the range. And risk something like, of course, we've got to get the pullback first. Risk something like, I don't know, 150 pips to pick up maybe 450. So a 3-to-1 trade. I think that would be a reasonable position to take if I can find my way in there. Euro dollar or short on a weekly basis, but I've got to get that that pullback. I'm not just going to jump in here. What else have we got? Well, I tend to look at the majors only on a Monday. Maybe I'll have a look at a couple against the yen, given the scenario. But the Aussie, I think last Sunday week in the original show, we were all calling the short, and we were spot on the money here. This was in all sorts. And the reason is not just because of a strengthening US dollar. And we'll find out next week, I suppose, because they've been calling the RBA not so much. They haven't said too much, but the local economists here in Australia have been calling for another rate cut. I don't think the RBA said anything to quash that. So next Tuesday, I don't know if those numbers are up yet on the Forex Factory, if they're predicting a rate cut or not, but that will be very, very interesting next Tuesday. And I think the market is now really pricing that in. But there are other issues in Australia, not least of which, of course, is the disastrous drought and bushfires that we've been having over the last few months. But, you know, structurally, on this chart, the Aussie is still in a bull market, believe it or not, the way I look at it anyway. To me, this daily chart saying higher high, higher low, higher high, don't know, question mark. So that raises the question, is that the line where we see the Aussie rally, maybe even back to this trend line? Good question, don't know. But I think that's probably what I'd be looking for this week, is the Aussie to fall to here, to this level around about 67.5 mark, and then rally. How high, you wouldn't be game to guess, I don't think, and I can't imagine, unless we get to next Tuesday, which is way over here somewhere probably. So this may not even be in play at that point. But if we do get to next Tuesday and the RBA do not cut rates, then you will see, I think, a little bit of a rally in the Aussie, and dependent on what's happening with the virus at that point in time, as to how far that can go is a question mark. But this week, I think you've still got to be a bear on the Aussie. But it does look to me that's like the market is definitely pricing in, if not a rate cut, certainly the murmur of one yet to come on Aussie US dollar. That's what it looks like to me. Let's talk about dollar yen, I suppose. How long can we stay in this trade? Well, this is a long-term trade, of course. I'm targeting this area here in the first instance. So I'm not even considering profits at this point. I would take profit when we got to here, without question. I think that's only the wise thing to do. Where would I place my stops next is the question. I don't think I'd move them at that point. I think I'd leave them there. I'd take profit here. When we get to this level, however, I think I would take probably a second profit and move my stops to entry, which is here. And then just let this run to this level here, where I'd probably take all profit, take everything off the table at that. So and as I explained, when we place this order, yes, it's a weekly chart. Yes, it's a risk of only 100 and what? I think it was 100 and wasn't even 100 pips, wasn't? Maybe 90 pips. I can't remember now. Without looking, and the potential reward on this was 450. So I thought that was a reasonable position to take, and I'm very, very happy that I'm into that trade. And hopefully we can get through here and on with the job. How's that pound breakout trade? Nothing happening there on the pound breakout trade. I'll update you guys on progress on this tomorrow. I haven't done the figures over the weekend. I've been a lazy sod. Well, I haven't been lazy. I've been very, very busy. But that is probably where I sit, Ash, I think, at the moment. Yeah. There's not a lot to like about anything against the US dollar at the moment, I don't think. I can't make a case for a long the Aussie, can't make a case for a long the euro. I can kinda with the pound, but gee, very, very high risk to enter the pound long at the moment, I believe.
Yeah, I think you're right on that, mate. I think you're right. I think the market needs to just settle down a little bit as well. So I'd quite like that. I like the long here, but I'm not going to enter it just yet. And I think it's probably, a similar situation with what's going with the pound. I think, the pound could go either way really at this point.
Yeah, actually, let's go back to a couple of trades we took last week. The Euro Kiwi we took on the daily chart. Can't remember our first entry. Might have been this bar here. No. Can't remember our first entry. Anyway, first entry got knocked over by this was our first entry here. So exactly pretty much the same as our second entry. So we traded this bar here. And for whatever reason, got no idea what happened here. Maybe just one of those, let's pick up a little bit of liquidity here. I don't know. Maybe I got trampled by my own conspiracy theories. So when that got rolled, it didn't deter me, because I really thought this was a super duper reason to go short here. Reasoning was we're in a very big bear trend, and we had a beautiful retracement. Came off the highs, came off this support and resistance level here, came back and retested it basically. But guess what? We didn't retest it with the right candle. We got that one, but finally we got into the trade, and as you can see, the weekend's reaction or market reaction to the virus has taken us back to that level. Nothing, as I said, nothing to do here, and I think really we've been a little bit unlucky not to test these lows, which is where our next profit level is, of course. But sometimes fundamentals jump up and get in the way. Slight risk still on that one, having taken our first profit level. And the other one, which was very, very similar to this, was Aussie Kiwi. Massive bear, as you know, Aussie last week, and we found a way into Aussie Kiwi short. Was that on a daily chart as well? Yeah, I traded this bar here. So I traded this bar here. I was going to trade it long and short, but I decided short was the way to go with my super bearishness against the Aussie, which is very, very unusual for me to take a long off this double bottom here. But I was so keen to get short the Aussie, I suppose, in as many ways as I could. And we had some very positive murmurs coming out of New Zealand about the Kiwi. So I thought this was a really decent position to take. But exactly the same thing happened, where we got into the trade. Then this mongrel candle came along and decided that it wanted to take out our stop. and now we have retested the bottom of that range where one of our profit levels would have been. I'd probably be still keen to trade this, but I'm certainly not going to jump in at this level. Unfortunately, we just couldn't find our way back into this one where we did on Euro Kiwi. But I see the weekly pivot looming large there, and it looks like we may have already had that retest. That may have been the re-entry bar that we've already seen today. Very, very difficult for me to trade this short at this point. So that's kind of off the table at the moment, Aussie Kiwi, sadly, because, I did want to get into this short. I'm going to work a whole lot overnight, Ash, on trying to get rid of this stupid thing in the middle of my chart here. I think that probably necessitates a reboot. But that's pretty much where I'm at, and I don't see anything changing today anyway. I can't see me getting into the market on anything new.
No, me neither, mate. I'm with you completely. I haven't seen any significant signs and signals of reversal. They are there very weakly in the market, but they're too weak to kind of to get on board with just yet. So still looking for the long. Don't mind it here, but I wouldn't mind another 50 pips lower. But let's check it out tomorrow, mate. I think the market needs a little bit of settling down for a day.
Sounds like a plan. I guess we should just, and I hate to say things that are just in the embryonic stages, guys, but we are working on a new format for this show, and it's going to include interviews with master traders. It's going to include things like, should I call it breakout groups for our music segments, Ash, or what should I call it? Developing people.
What for the artists?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it would be. We're going to be listening to some music, and maybe Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we'll listen to a new piece of music every day, and then on Thursday we'll have a little vote and play that piece of music again for whichever one we preferred as a group. So yeah, just a little bit more kind of. But a little bit lighter as well. We're gonna be doing a bit of both, aren't we? A bit of chart recognition, bit of technical analysis, bit of fundamental, but make it a little bit lighter as well, and a bit more entertaining with a piece of new music. I suppose that's what you're getting at with a breakout, to give somebody that's not massively out there just some exposure.
Yeah, just for a little bit. And that's a couple of changes that we're looking. Well, not changes; they're just additions to the show, I guess.
Yeah.
And I'm working on an idea also that I won't tell anybody about right now, except to say that there might be a little competition coming where you guys get to show us your chart of the week or trade of the week before it happens, of course. And if that happens to pay off, we might be able to find something in the prize kit.
Oh, that sounds good. I like that, mate. I like that.
Yeah, we'll see how we go. That might be an interesting twist for you guys to participate in the show as well.
Yeah, yeah.
So practice up on your
calls.
Trade calls, I suppose.
Yeah.
Practice up on those, and if we can find a way to actually present that, we will do that as well.
Oh, that sounds brilliant. Yeah, the trade call section. Everybody flying a trade, and maybe just on a Monday, because I guess you'd want the trade of the week, wouldn't you? So on Thursday we check out who was the winner. Oh, I love it.
Yep.
Liking that. Okay, so we've got some developments coming just to kind of make the show a little bit lighter as well. Because there's times, like we've got today, we don't really have anything, but we still want to make sure that there's some value in this thing in. So we are looking to provide some of that.
Indeed.
But let's come back tomorrow, mate. Same trade time, same trade channel, 5 to 8.
Don't you be late, and that is a date. Cheers, guys. Have a good week.
Thanks, guys. See you later.